So behind me, I've made a rather delicious nest. I've just opened up a blanket. And so I've got my yoga mat underneath that blanket. Then I've got a big old blanket on there. And then I've got a little fluffy rug on top of that. So what I'd recommend for your practice, if you want to do that now so you don't have to think about it later, is just to get a blanket and open that out over your area, just so you've got some extra padding. If you've got a carpet or a big rug that you practice on, you'll probably be fine. Other things you're going to need, guys, for this practice, this morning's little art therapy session is any medium that you've got, whether it's pencils, pens, 2 or 3 mediums would be great. If you only have a couple of mediums, that's fine. To do this practice in your own time, I'll send you the link to the girl who has inspired me for this practice. I follow her online. She's fantastic. She's got YouTube videos on art therapy techniques. So I'll post that in the group. But she uses paints, and it makes sense using paints because you can get different qualities and you can mix things up quite quickly. But for today, because we haven't got time to let the paint dry and all of that, we're just going to use other bits and pieces. You might have pastels, you might have felt tip pens, you might have biros. So just a couple, 2 or 3 mediums would be fab. Also, if you've got an old magazine that you don't mind tearing up, cutting up, then perhaps grabbing that. And if you have a glue stick, wonderful. Okay, so last week we chose a word to describe how we were feeling today, and we were talking about animals, weren't we? Referencing animals. I think I was a sloth with a balloon and a party hat. Today, a little simpler. I'd like you to just drop in and just get a little sense of feeling into this body, the interoception of this body, the physical sensations within us, alongside any feelings that we feel. Perhaps we're going to close the eyes if that felt safe and okay. And as you start to just drop into how it is to be this human being today, how would you describe this being human as a color? What color would you be? Or what color best describes how you feel today? And then perhaps coming back into the space and flickering the eyes open. And if you struggle to find a color to resonate or express or explain how you feel today, then that's fine too. You could use a word if that suits you better. It's always a nice way to kind of explore how we're feeling and put it into different terminology and words and visualizations for ourselves to understand ourselves a little bit better and perhaps how we're feeling today. So we're going to continue that theme, working with color, working with expression. So if you've got some paper, fantastic. We'll definitely need some paper for this, unless you've got the approval to use your walls. You're very welcome to. It has been done. Dale has come home before and there's been a whole wall covered. He took it really well. We're going to have our mediums handy nearby. So for example, if you had a packet of pastels, just take them out the box so you can see the colors out in front of you. And same if you had your pencils, if they're packed away in a pencil case, get them out so you can see all the colors there. So it's quite an immediate connection. As you look at your first medium, and the first medium perhaps wants to be the slightly less dense of the mediums you're going to use today. So for example, pencil rather than paint, or pen rather than thick oil pastel. So using the slightly lighter, less dense material first. And as you take your eyes to view those colors, pick 2 colors that stand out for you. It doesn't matter if it resonates with the visualization earlier or not. It can do, but it doesn't have to. Just what stands out to you, 2 colors. And we're going to hold those colors in each hand. And then your paper's out in front of you. Maybe it's on the floor, maybe it's on the lap on a tray or drawing board, maybe you're on a coffee table or you have a table in front of you. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a reasonably firm surface. And then we're just going to place the two pencils, pastels, crayons, chalks, whatever you've got, place them onto the page and then just close the eyes. Relax the shoulders. And just begin to move your medium across the paper. And the hands might mirror or they might not mirror. They might want to work and move in a slightly different way, or they may want to mirror at times. So all is welcome, but just try and keep contact with the paper. And keeping the eyes closed, just to let go of the inhibitions of what we might feel about how the artwork's looking. I'm not trying to control it to look like a pretty piece in any way. We're just letting the hands and the medium just move across the page. And as you move the medium across the page and wiggles, swirls, circles, whatever comes out, then just notice, is there a rigidity in the wrist and in the shoulder? Could you afford to relax the wrist, the shoulders a little bit more, loosen into the arms, into the elbows? Maybe the spine wants to sway a little bit, who knows? Just a few more moments with the eyes closed. Just stop when you're ready and pop down your medium of choice. Maybe take a deep breath in and out. Just flickering the eyes open and having a little look at your page, seeing what you may have created in front of you, your beautiful squiggles, unique to you, not two squiggles that will be the same. And then starting to move and gravitate towards your second medium of choice. So for example, if you just use pencils, then maybe you're going to move on to your pens or maybe your chalks or whatever else that you've got. And of course you can use paints. It's just if you don't have a drying tool, a method of drying it, then it might be a little bit tricky. And again, with the second medium, you don't have to pick just two. You could have one, you could have several colors there, but maybe just preparing your little artboard of props, whether that's paint or crayons, and just having them out ready to go. And have your magazine handy, maybe your scissors handy, your glue handy as well. So when the time's right, the eyes are open now, by the way, guys, eyes are open. I'd like you to just start exploring, getting some marks down onto the paper. Maybe you're drawing over the top of your squiggles. Maybe you are moving with the squiggles that you've created and drawing around them or through them. So interact with perhaps what's already there, but also don't be afraid to explore beyond that. And there's no right or wrong. Remember, you can scribble, you can circle, you can create shapes, you can be as abstract as you like. And if you really struggle with this, guys, you're not on your own. Creating abstract art can be a practice in itself, just to let go, not to worry about the outcome, not to worry about it looking pretty. So if you do struggle with that, letting go, then try closing the eyes again for a couple of breaths as you draw. And see if you can drop in to just letting that flow through. And as you're creating, again, just notice how the body's responding. Has suddenly the wrist tightened up again as the shoulder kind of got tight? Can we loosen off and almost imagine that the hand is the extension of the spine? Perhaps even feeling that movement coming from a central point. Perhaps we could say the heart or a core, or maybe somewhere else. There's no right and there's no wrong. And as you create, as you sketch and splurge onto the page, you can also take pauses when you need to. You could also grab your magazine at any point, flick through, and if there's a color or an image that you like, you could tear that out and stick that onto the paper and start beginning to add that in. So keep letting that just flow through. And when you get a little stuck, when you start to analyze and critique your work, then just pause. Again, maybe it's the closing of the eyes. Maybe it's a deep breath. Maybe it's a relaxing of the shoulders. And there's no boundaries here. You can just keep creating, expressing, and letting part of yourself just pour out onto the paper. No judgment. If the inner critic comes in, that little voice comes in, then can you visualize just letting that go in whichever way? Sometimes I visualize a little character on my shoulder. I can just imagine just flicking them off the shoulder. Go on, go away. Maybe affirmations work for you. I'm free to create and express myself as I desire. I allow my creativity to flow through me. So we're going to keep going until past. That's about another 4 minutes, guys. I apologize if anyone can hear Naya snoring. I promise it's not me. Baby. We've got about another minute remaining. Mm. Mm. Nora. Great, guys. So just a few more moments. And when you're ready, pop your mediums down. Great, well done, guys. It's a short amount of time to create in, isn't it? So you've done really, really well. And of course, this practice is being shared so that you can perhaps explore this in your own time, maybe even on some bigger paper or with some paints as well. But the next phase is to pick your heaviest medium. So perhaps if you had oil pastels or something that felt a little bit thicker, it's going to cover your artwork a little easier. Maybe it's a thick, I don't know, pen or something like that. And I'd like you to cover at least 50% of your artwork in this medium. I know. It's all part of the process, guys. I know. Some of you might want to be photographing now before. It's going to make you feel a certain way, this practice, guys. So go with it. So, for example, with me in my head, I'm imagining I've drawn my artwork. It's all there in front of me. Then I've picked up like a teal or a dark murky green, just because that's what came into my head probably from earlier. And I'm just going to smear that over 50% of my painting. And it might not be that you draw a line halfway down the page. It doesn't have to be like one half smeared and one half not, although you could do that. It might be that you do a patch here and a patch there and a patch here, you know, but about 50% coverage of your artwork. Always an interesting process, this. Doing great, guys. And then when you've covered about 50% of the page in your stuff, whatever medium you've used, then you've got another perhaps 3 to 5 minutes of just continuing to create. So you might create over the top of the thicker medium that you've just used. You might create around it. You might go through it. You might scratch into it. So there's, again, you are unbounded. You might poke holes in the paper. You could do anything. Dash, stipple, sweep, crumple, anything. Yeah, it is yours. Let's say we've got about 3 more minutes remaining from here, guys. And the response to the covering of the artwork is very similar, I'd imagine, energetically to the response of taking students into deep hip openers. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. You are unbounded by this exercise. What do you feel like doing? Mm. Got 2 minutes remaining, guys. Last minute. And slowly bringing your practice to a close. I promise you can come back to it. You can start a new piece at any point too. You've done so well, guys. All of you got stuck into it. Well done. Great. So the next little phase is our journal reflections. So I'm going to give you some journal prompts. I'm going to ask you some questions and perhaps you could just journal in response to that. So if you want to grab your diary, your journal, your notebook, whatever it is you use perhaps for your morning pages, and then a pen of choice. Just something that's easy to write with. Love it. It's like power art, isn't it? Well done, guys. Not easy to do these tasks with such short timing, so well done. That in itself is part of the practice right now. So first journal prompt, if you're ready to write, guys, what kind of changes did your artwork go through? So what sort of changes did your artwork go through? What did you notice? What changed about your art as you were flowing? So maybe a bit of a brief summary of the stages that you experienced, that you went through with your artwork, the changes that appeared, and what you noticed. Apologies if you can hear Naya. I don't know if anyone can hear Naya snoring. Honestly, she's so loud. And then the next prompt is, what kind of feelings arose during this process? So what kind of feelings arose during this process? You may notice within the process it can feel a little bit triggering, so just acknowledging anything that came up for you. Perhaps as you changed mediums. Also how it felt to be time bound. And were there any physical sensations present during the entire process? Did you notice any physical sensations arising? Did you find any part of this process particularly challenging? Any parts of this process particularly challenging? And if so, how did you overcome these challenges? And then if your artwork had a name, what would it be? Joe, like that one. If your artwork had a name, what would it be? Or perhaps if that's a challenge, maybe a title. If your artwork had a title, what would it be? There's no right or wrong. There's no silly answer, just whatever comes to you. Let that fall onto the page. And final questions. Okay. So if your artwork had a message for you, what would it be? As you look at your artwork, just get a feel for that. If your artwork had a message for you, what would it be? What would it say? What is the artwork reflecting? What's it telling you? And when you look at your artwork now, what sort of thoughts or feelings or insights arise? Might be quite similar to the last question. So when you look at your artwork now, what sort of thoughts, feelings, and insights arise? Yeah, you're right, Jamie. It can be very powerful. And then this last minute or so, if you just want to expand on in your journal on anything that we've touched on already through the prompts of reflections or anything else that you feel like you'd like to get out onto the page, then please take this next minute to do so. Great. For those of you that have finished, if you did want to take your toilet break, then you're so welcome to, or get a glass of water, or if you just want to stand outside and stamp your feet and have a big old breath, then know that that's so welcome, guys. We're changing the structure just slightly this week. Big week, guys. Big week. And, you know, we're a month in. You have been exploring and experiencing, well, way before this, but really acknowledging that inner artist for a whole month now. So it's like for many of us, it's like the deck has been thrown up in the air, and it's like, oh, I've got to kind of collect the cards and kind of find where I feel my center of balance within this. And there's a lot that's challenging our identity, isn't it, within this creative process. So you're doing the work, it's incredible. And it's like that roller coaster that I think Kate was mentioning. You know, I think we can all, myself included, can feel into that and have experienced that on this creative journey. And it's just within those kind of dormant or maybe slightly lower places on that roller coaster where we just need to check in, look after ourselves, and not give up. You know, there might be a dormancy there for a little while, but just keep going with your morning pages, guys, and use your morning pages as a friend. You know, really, I feel like this, I'm expressing this, I'm not sure how I feel about this, I'm not sure, you know, just keep going with it. And you're doing the work. It's incredible. I'm blown away massively. Thank you so much for your honesty and your sharing with your check-ins. Like Joe, I was feeling into my responses with you guys, and there'd be like a little tightness in my tummy and then like a little sadness in my heart. And it's like, is that mine, or is that just that empathetic connection? It's such an incredible process to be with you on this journey, guys. Thank you. So, big stuff. Anyone just feel like shaking? Should we just shake about a bit? Yeah, let's do that. We're going to do that. So, Ange, I know that you've got to disappear in 5 minutes. Do you think you've got 5 minutes to have a shake with us? Great. Brilliant. I'd love that, just to make sure we're all feeling good. Okay, so we're going to start off just standing, or you could do it in your chair if you wanted to sit. That's absolutely fine. And just finding a space that you can express yourself in. So we might start off by just shaking a foot. Any foot will do, but really loosen off that joint, guys. So really let that foot feel floppy. I often describe it as like a fish jumping out of water and flapping around. You just want to really loosen off, and then just let that move up into that hip. Let that move up into the hip. And if you find your balance uneasy, you could hold something, or you could just rest the toes on the floor and just let that hip start to loosen. And then just let that right shoulder, so moving that up from the toes, up through the hip, through the shoulder, and then lean forwards and just let that move through. Take some noise, take some size, let that move through. Can you let that arm get a little bit heavier? Can you loosen off that elbow a little bit more? Let go of the head. And then stamping right foot, stamping right foot. You might want to create some sound. Ha, ha, ha. And if you start laughing, that is so welcome too. Yes, Kate, lovely. Yes, Joe, love it. And then the second side, if you haven't already, getting into that second foot and just letting that ankle go, let the toes go. Oh, let that move up through the leg into the hip. You can always hold something or put the toes down if you need to, and then up into that shoulder until eventually that shoulder just wants to express even more, so you might have to lean forwards to get that movement through the arm. Loosen up that old chi, that old habit, that old holding, that old belief that holds you back. Let go of the head. And then stamping, left foot, create sound. Whatever sound wants to move through, let it move through. Ha! Ha! And then let the whole body jiggle and wiggle without any inhibitions. You might want to stir some part of the body. There might be a different movement that wants to move through. Welcome to free movement. Welcome to your body having an absolutely delightful time. And inhibitions will come and go. We'll start to feel self-conscious. Just take a deep breath, close the eyes, let that go. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you look like. Nobody cares how you're moving your body. Nobody cares how your body looks. Just breathe, soften, fall in. And then some last final wiggles, jiggles, movements before slowing it down now. Slowing it down. Slowing it down. Take a big breath in, standing still, float the arms up. Big deep breath out. Big deep breath in. Big deep breath out. Feel into your feet. Big deep breath in. Breathe right the way down into the earth. And then slowly settling yourself down on your back. So if you get lost with this movement, please take a look this way. So this is a practice that really helps to calm the nervous system. It involves flipping the feet forwards and back very quickly. So you might want to have a little look at the practice first of all before you lie flat. So I'm just going to start to just flip my toes forwards and back. And eventually that movement is going to ripple up through the body, and eventually the head is going to be saying yes. I'm not purposely moving the head. That is coming from the momentum of the feet moving up the chain of the body. Okay, so when you're doing this incorrectly, you'll know because your calves will start to burn. So try to let the ankles and feet just flip forwards and back without trying to use the muscles to create the flipping action quite so fiercely. So nice, soft, loose ankles as you flip the toes quickly forwards and back. And we're just massaging the fascia on the back of the body here. helping to tell the body to just relax, settle in. It's like receiving a massage. And has your head started to nod yes yet? If it hasn't, don't worry. Like anything, it can take a bit of practice. So just go easy, go kind. And if you really struggle with the feet flippy thing, then you can do this with the knees bent, soles of the feet grounded, and just press through the feet. Press through the feet and see if you can get that rippling effect up through the body until the head starts to nod yes. Take a few more moments, just rocking the body. And I've got the song, This Little Heart of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine, going through my head right now. So feel free in joining, reciting that song out loud or silently to yourself if that fits. And then when you're ready, at a certain point, just stop your shaking, stop the rocking, just come into what you might call a shavasana or just a reclined, relaxed pose. And just let go of any efforting at all. Deep breath into the belly, into the ribs, into the chest, and just watching the breath escape the body of its own accord. One more round in your own time. Well done, guys. Rolling off onto your side. You might want to be on your side for a breath. And then coming up, just so you can just see the example of this next movement. It's a somatics practice. And again, it will feel clunky if it's the first time you've ever done it. So please don't worry if you don't get the movement straight away. It's something to be played with. So there's a couple of somatic variations I'd like to share with you today. The first variation, the knees will be bent and the arms will be by the side. I want you to imagine you're like a rag doll. And in a moment, I'll talk you through it, but just demonstrating for now. In a moment, I'm going to encourage that you turn the head to one side and then listen to the urge of the body. The knees will want to then fall. And then as if the head is going to lead you into your movement, as if you could imagine, it's almost like my chin actually, it's just going to lead me. Well, the rest of my body is sleepy, soft and relaxed. And my head is just yielding me into this form where I may or may not roll through the forehead and end up in some sort of bizarre twist. And then we come back into the rewind of the melt, coming back to the center. And in my own practice, I'd probably spend a bit longer coming into that, but just for time's sake. So we turn the head, then the intuition of the body, the knees might want to drop next, they might not. See what happens in your body. And then the head is going to lead the journey. I'm not using my body and my muscles to pull me in. I'm letting the head just lead. And the arms and the limbs are just going to do whatever they want to do. Maybe you roll through all the way, maybe you don't. Oh, melt. Oh, so good. So join with me, guys, if you haven't already. If you want me to cue you, I'll cue you. But if you're quite confident with the movement, just go with it. So to cue those of you that want that, I'm going to start by asking you to just get heavy in your body. Let your shoulders settle, let your head get heavy. And now just start to rock the head a little side to side, like you're saying no, a really small no gesture with the head. And then eventually turning the head to the left as if gravity is assisting that movement more than your muscular efforting. And notice how the left knee might want to fall to the left. And then the right knee might want to fall to the left. And then we're on our side and there might be a pause there. And just listening in, well, if I let my head move in the direction that I want to go, so moving, leading with the head, notice how it pulls the body into this delicious expression of perhaps what we might name a twist. And the arms can fall wherever the arms want to fall. There's no right or wrong. This is your body experiencing. And you might stay there for a breath or two, or you might decide to come out and just gently retrace the lines slowly as you go, rolling out of the pose in order to express to the second side. So take your time. Maybe you do your micro no action with your head. And then eventually the head might want to pour to the right. And then the right knee, you might want to pour to the right, and then the left knee. And then we lead with the head, almost like you're extending the chin away from you. And perhaps that takes you into a rotation where you roll onto the front of the body. And again, don't worry if this feels clunky. The first few times you do it, it most likely will. But when you relax into the movement, you'll notice the nervous system just absolutely loves this sort of movement. Your tissues will just get a gorgeous ironing out. So take one more round to each side. If you get lost, just come into the breath, come into the body and ask the body, how would you like to move? How would you like to roll, body? Rather than thinking about the yoga forms we might be familiar with. Let all of that go. Because this is your art. This is you expressing your creativity through movement. And some of you might be so deep into that movement that you don't want to stop and you don't want to change, and that's fine. You can stay where you are. Continue. But if you would like to try a slightly different form, then maybe have a little look this way in your own time. So there's a couple of ways that I teach this. One of the ways is to smile the pelvis, to coming in from that way. But I think I'll try and simplify it a little bit by just starting with my arms out wide. Again, just letting total rest just pour through the bones. And then starting with the knees this time, falling to one side. And I'm going to bring my awareness down into the pelvis, into the belly, into Svadhisthana. So Kate, you were visualizing orange earlier, beautiful color to synchronize here. And then imagine that orange, that belly just growing and wanting to express. And maybe the pelvis feels like it yawns a little bit. Maybe we increase a little bit of curvature in the spine. Perhaps then this top arm, my right arm, is just doing its own thing and it seems to want to reach over the head. And I'm not sure where I'll end up, so I'll just relax into it and see where the body goes. And I think it wants to stop there. Your body might want to stop somewhere else. And then again, just retracing the lines as you come back out of the pose. Oh, it's delicious. So again, for those of you still watching, needing those cues, you just drop the knees to the side first. And then think about this area here, the belly, the front of the pelvis expanding. There's a little bit of a levering off my left foot, but it's the pelvis that's wanting to express. And then as the spine curls in, seem to be rolling to the side, and this left arm's just doing its own thing. It's yawning over the head. I'm just going to see where I end up. So keep playing, guys. Keep exploring. And I'm just demonstrating where my body's going. Your body might want to go in a different angle. The legs and the arms might want to do a different thing. There might be some other feeling of expression that moves through the legs, for example, and the arms. You might end up in a really unusual place. You might end up sideways on your mat, lolling around on the floor. Absolute permission to loll. There is no judgment, criticism, or expectation, just absolute freedom to honor the artistic expression of movement and how that wants to be expressed through your body. And those of you that are familiar with free movement, you might eventually be coming up and doing some seated movements or some standing movements again. And if you get lost, then just come back to that middle place, come back to that starting position and just feel into, well, when I move my knees to the side, how might I continue the direction of movement through intuition by following the feeling within the body, the interoception. Taking a few more moments, just exploring and expressing, diving in deeply. And eventually lulling our way all the way back to our mat or our nest, the place where it's most comfortable for us to rest on our back. And finding what we might know as Shavasana, where we settle the bones, perhaps the feet are hip width apart or a little wider if that suits your anatomy, physiology. Maybe the arms are resting alongside the body, palms facing up in a gesture of receptivity. Or perhaps the arms want to be somewhere else, maybe over the head like a sleeping baby, more of a gesture of surrender perhaps. And then take a gorgeous, long, slow, deep drink of your breath and sigh out any drops of resistance. Any stagnant energy, anything that feels dull or dormant. Imagine that just blowing away on the next few breaths. Each inhalation an opportunity to refill our well, to top ourselves up, to recharge. And eventually just falling into a natural ebb and flow of your breath now. So letting go of any breath control. And I'd like you to begin to just address the interoception of the toes through your awareness. So bringing the awareness into each and every toes. How many toes are present here with us this afternoon? 1 or 2 toes or all 10 toes? And can you breathe space in and around the toes, into the toe joints themselves, until eventually it might feel a little bit like the toes are getting longer, maybe slightly broader. Toe joints loosening their grip. And can we breathe our awareness into the curves and the edges of our feet, soles of the feet, and the heel making contact with the earth. Exposed top of the foot. If there's a blanket or some socks on, can you feel the sensation of the material touching the skin on the feet? Can you feel from the inside out the feet? The temperature, perhaps a sensation of pressure inside the feet. Does the right foot and the left foot synchronize? Do we notice one a little more than the other? Breathe down into feet and feel the awareness in and around the ankle joints now. Could you afford to let go in those ankle joints that little bit more? Space opening up in the ankles. So much so that it might feel a little bit like the feet are moving away from the lower limbs, toes moving away from the feet. And then diving our awareness into the shins and the strong muscles of the calves. Can you let the calves feel like they're just sagging off of the bone? Unraveling their grip on the bone. Lower limbs starting to soften and relax, so much so, almost feels like the bones themselves are more pliable, softer. Breathing in, around, and deep inside the knees now. All the way to the inner knee. Can you imagine spacious, open knee joints? So much so, the lower limb feels like it's moving away from the upper limbs and the thighs. That continual feeling of spreading and expansion, like your legs are getting a bit longer now. Breathing into the thighs, the strong muscles on the tops of the fronts of the legs, and the hamstrings, strong muscles at the backs of the thighs. Again, can you imagine these just unraveling their tension, like loosening their grip on the bones, sliding off the bones, so relaxed. Breathing in and around the pelvis. Breathing in and around the belly. Loosening and relaxing the pelvis and the hip bones. Hip joints releasing any tension. So if you could imagine the femur bones, the thigh bones themselves moving away slightly from the acetabulum, the hip sockets. Legs so long now. And then breathing your awareness into the base of the spine, and with each breath, just traveling notch by notch up through the vertebra and the discs. And imagining as you move up through each level, each notch of the spine, a little bit more space increasing between the vertebra and the discs themselves becoming more plump, more hydrated. And it might feel a little bit like the spine, without any muscular efforting whatsoever, is growing taller, like the top of the head is moving away from the spine. Might start to feel like the torso is getting longer and longer and longer. Breathe in and around the torso. Imagine the organs smiling with this sense of spacious broadening that's occurring. Feeling the weight and the density of the torso. Almost imagining those smiling organs just nestling into the back of the body. Just relaxing. Perhaps we bring the awareness then through to the fingers. Can you feel all 10 fingers, or just one or two fingers kind of presenting themselves to us through our awareness right now? Breathe in and around the pillars of the fingers, into the warmth of the palms of your hands and the sensation of the skin on the back of the hands. And the qualities of the inner hands, the pressure, the temperature, the density. Maybe in and around all of the joints of the knuckles, spacious open knuckles. And then inside the wrists, breathing in and around the wrists until eventually it might feel like the hands move away from the wrists a little. Fingers moving away from the hands a little. Fingers becoming really long. And drawing that awareness up through those strong forearms. Breathing in and around the forearms, letting the tissues loosen their grip, sag and hang and slip off the bones. Deep inside the elbows now, can you loosen any holding here? Spacious, open elbow joints. And then the strong muscles of the biceps and the triceps of the upper arms, loosening their grip on the humerus bones, the upper arm bones. And can you imagine those humerus bones moving slightly away from the shoulder capsule? And then the lower arms, the forearms moving away from the elbows. And the hands moving away from the wrists and the fingers moving away from the hands, so the arms are longer and longer and longer. Soften across the tops of the shoulders. Melt all tension in the belly. And pause in the spacious, open expanse of this long, broad, and deeply relaxed body. Now, please know that you are so welcome to stay exactly where you are. There is no need to come up, but if you do need to come up, we are at time. We're a little over. So maybe wiggling toes and fingers, just gently, so sweetly stirring yourself into some small movements, whispers of movement, fingers, toes, maybe a head rolling from side to side. There's no urgency. And when the time feels right for you, we might be rolling to a side of choice. And eventually, maybe being brave and coming all the way up. And then just taking a little moment, you can choose to sit on the floor in your chair. You can have the hands in Anjali Mudra, or maybe you just want to cross the hands or hold a hand on the heart. But just create a little wish for yourself today, a wish of self-care. So perhaps it's making yourself a really healthy, vibrant lunch. Maybe it's going for a little walk outside or hugging a tree. Maybe it's doing a little bit more art or journaling. But just make that little wish of self-care for yourself. And see yourself doing that activity. Maybe it's a nice bath. Maybe it's lighting a candle and having a meditation. It can be anything. Just see yourself completing that task, doing that thing. What time of day are you going to do it? What clothes are you wearing whilst doing your activity? Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste, yoginis. I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend. So keep in touch on the group, guys, or if anyone wants to chat with me individually, then know that you can do that. We can set that up. But yeah, just keep doing the work. You're incredible, you're inspiring, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. to see you on the mat then, guys. Lots of love.